These clouds, however, are radiant with the glow of the moon's own rays. Similarly, in our conditioned material existence, we cannot directly perceive the soul because our consciousness is covered by the false ego, which is the false identification with the material world and the material body. Yet, it is the soul's own consciousness that illumines the false ego. As the Gita describes, the energy of the soul is consciousness, and when this consciousness manifests through the screen of the false ego, it appears as dull material consciousness, in which there is no direct vision of the soul or God. In the material world, even great philosophers ultimately resort to hazy ambiguities when speaking about the absolute truth. Just as the cloudy sky manifests only in a dull and indirect way the iridescent light of the moon. In material life, our false ego is often enthusiastic, hopeful, and apparently aware of various material affairs. And such consciousness encourages us to push on in material existence. But in truth, we are merely experiencing the dull reflection of our original pure consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness, direct perception of the soul and God. Not realizing that the false ego merely hampers and dulls our real spiritual consciousness, which is fully enlightened and blissful, we mistakenly think that material consciousness is full of knowledge and happiness. This is comparable to thinking that the luminous clouds are lighting up the night sky, while in fact it is the moonshine that illumines the sky, and the clouds that merely dull and hamper the moonshine. The clouds appear luminous because they are filtering and impeding the brilliant rays of the moon. Similarly, at times material consciousness appears pleasurable or enlightened because it is screening or filtering the original blissful and enlightened consciousness coming directly from the soul. If we can understand the ingenious analogy given in this verse, we can easily advance in Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Maha Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradharana Para. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. During the rainy season, the moon was prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the clouds, which were themselves illumined by the moon's rays. Similarly, the living being in material existence is prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the false ego, which is itself illumined by the consciousness of the pure soul. So this is a very wonderful verse which we will discuss today. on how the living entity is covered by the false ego. Today is also the auspicious day on which Srila Prabhupada embarked on his journey to America.
8th August.
Yes, 1965. And then he reached here in September. So we'll celebrate that again. But here in this particular verse, it is explained that how there is the moon in the night sky which is illuminating everything. In fact, it is also said that all the rasa and the taste in the vegetables and fruits comes from the moon rays. So the moon, that's where all the taste and the juices come. And the clouds sometimes cover the moon, and we are not able to see the moon, but we see the moon rays that are coming through the clouds. But now they are coming with the clouds as the screen. Similarly, the soul is present within this body, and its consciousness is pervading all over the body. But its consciousness is coming through the screen of the false ego. Ego means identity. And false ego is an element, is a material element which actually makes us falter our identity. It gives us a false identity. And the purpose of spiritual life, purpose of chanting Hare Krishna, is to transform this false ego into true ego. And true ego is Krishnera Swarupa hoy, Nitya Krishna Das. Jivera Swarupa hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das. So, yes, Jivera Swarupa means the Swarupa of the living entity, the original consciousness of the living entity is Krishnera Nitya Das, is the eternal servant of Krishna. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu qualifies it much more. It's not just servant of Krishna, it's servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Gopi Bhartur Pada Kamalayor Das 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 Anudas. That is the that is the original consciousness of the living entity, which is completely opposite the false ego. False ego, we think we are the body. The false identity of the soul thinking that I am the body. And true ego, the soul understands its true identity, which is the servant of the servant of the servant. And for us who are practicing the process of bhakti, we shuttle between false ego and true ego. One moment we are in true ego, oh, we are the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. You are my Prabhu. And then if that Prabhu says, yes, I am your Prabhu, and you do this, suddenly the false ego transforms into false ego. Arey, but you just call me Prabhu, you just call me Master. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you should consider yourself as my master. I'm not your servant. So we vacillate. And when the time comes, when we'll always be in our true ego, in our true identity, then everything would become very clear. Right now, we want to, our intention is to transform it into true ego, but when the consciousness comes through the false ego, it screens our consciousness. And sometimes if the false ego is of red color, we see everything red. If it's of blue color, we see everything blue. If our false ego is covered by different layers of lust and pride and greed and envy, anger, ego, so many different emotions, then our true consciousness of the soul, which is blissful, it gets disrupted in different ways and comes out in different lights. In fact, Prabhupada would say that, when there were big concerts, Beatles would come, and in the concerts of Beatles, people would be crying and they would be jumping. There was a hysteria, there was a Beatlemania. And devotees asked that, what is this phenomena? Because this was never seen before. Probably Elvis Presley had that kind of following, but Beatles, what is this phenomena? So Prabhupada actually said, the living entity by nature has the consciousness of glorifying Krishna. They want to see Krishna as the celebrity. He's the original celebrity. They want to glorify him, they want to cheer him. But when that true consciousness of the living entity comes through the screen of the false ego, that same love and the propensity to cheer is misdirected to other icons who display a little bit of Krishna's potency. Someone could, when Krishna was dancing on the hoods of the Kaliya, all the Brajvasis, initially they were scared, but after some time they started cheering Krishna because Krishna was dancing so beautifully. One hood of Kaliya would come and try to attack him, and Krishna would jump on top of it, push it down. But it was a very graceful dance movement, and he was dancing like Nataraj, and everyone was cheering, just like. And so Prabhupada said, this is the real nature of the living entity. We are very much attached to our children. Actually, that propensity is to be attached to Krishna. But when it comes through the false ego and we try to think that, oh, this child is the product of my body, of me, and I am this body, so this child is actually mine, and we become attached on that platform, that's actually our attachment to Krishna, which is misdirected. Of course, we should take care of our children, understanding that they are under our care and we should give them the best care as possible, but they don't belong to us, they belong to Krishna. So all these different propensities are there, different false egos are there, and it is said that within us there are two voices which are always going. There is the voice of the ego and voice of the soul. And sometimes it's very difficult to decide which is the voice of the ego, which is the voice of the soul, which is the voice of the Paramatma, because they sound the same. And there are many other voices. They speak the same language, they speak the same, the voice is the same, it sounds the same. How do we distinguish? That's why we need a spiritual master who can help us distinguish what is from all the voices that are coming from within. Each of them are looking like they are beautiful inspirations that we should follow. But which is the correct voice that we should follow? That we can get from the guidance of the senior devotees and from the guidance of our spiritual masters. But ultimately, the voice, even though we get guidance from these great souls, we are more inclined to follow the voice which is the loudest. And which voice will be the loudest is the voice that we feed the most. If our voice of ego and voice of Paramatma comes simultaneously, and we choose, and we know this is now from the direction of the scriptures and from the spiritual masters, we know this is the voice of the Paramatma, this is the voice of the ego. But because from millions of lifetimes we have fed the voice of the ego, that voice is louder than the voice of the Paramatma that we can hear. And so we are more prone to follow the voice of the ego. And that's why sometimes we know this is not the right thing, but we are forced to do it because the voice is so loud. But Krishna explains, if you feed the voice of the soul And how do we feed it? By acting upon that voice. When we act upon that voice of the soul, disregarding however much the dog of the ego is barking, then the voice of the soul becomes more and more clearer, louder than the voice of the dog. Whichever dog barks the loudest, sometimes the voice of the dog is and the voice of the soul is so, which means we should feed the voice of the soul. That was just to wake myself up. And how do we, our true ego, as we said, is Gopi Bhartur, Pada Kamalayor, Das 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 Anudas, servant of the servant of the servant. The voice of the ego asks us, the false ego makes us believe that I deserve more than what I'm receiving. That I dressed the deities and actually I didn't get enough accolades for that. This person should have said this, and if someone glorifies us, we think he or she didn't glorify us enough. That is the voice of the false ego. The voice of the soul of humility is, I don't deserve this. I was not even supposed to be here. I was not supposed to be dressing the deities. I'm not qualified for that. So for whatever time I've been allowed to dress them, I should be grateful. Actually, according to my karma, according to my destiny, I was not supposed to be here. But because of devotees' mercy, somehow I'm here. And so even this much I'm being allowed to do, I should be grateful for that. That is the voice of humility. And then we can get over our false ego by chanting the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This was the humility with which Srila Prabhupada traveled to the Western world. If we read his prayer that he wrote on board the ship Jaladuta, he is praying, Bodo Kripa Kore Krishna, Adhamera Prati. I'm such a fallen soul, and you have given so much mercy to me. He's saying, I don't deserve this, but I'm so fortunate. And therefore he was so grateful. And in the end he says, Nachao, Nachao, Prabhu Jata, Nachao, Shai Mate. Which means, please make me dance. Kashtera Putule Jata, Nachao Shai Mate. Like a wooden puppet. Make me dance. I'm just your instrument. This was Srila Prabhupada's humility. In fact, when he embarked on the journey, on this momentous journey to America, we know that he had 40 rupees in his pocket. And he came here. Now recently, Radhanath Maharaj keeps inviting Vrindavan Day to, Chowpatty Temple, and when he visits Calcutta, he goes and visits Vrindavan Day. They are good friends. Vrindavan Day is Srila Prabhupada's son. He had 2 sons, and one of them is Vrindavan Day. Vrindavan Day was the one who came to drop Prabhupada on the docks of Kolkata, and he bid him the last goodbyes from the shores of Kolkata when the Jaladuta left. So last year in Mayapur, Guru Maharaj was giving a lecture, and he was saying that This time Vrindavan Day revealed a very confidential thing to him. He said Srila Prabhupada had 40 rupees in his pocket, but right before boarding Jaladuta, he gave those 40 rupees to Vrindavan Day and said, go to this Ayurvedic shop and purchase Ayurvedic medicine and ship me to America at this Gopal Agarwal's address, at this address who had, So Vrindavan Day said he started with 40 rupees, but when he boarded the ship, he didn't have those 40 rupees. So he was penniless when he came to America actually. So we can see how much faith Srila Prabhupada had with all this, with so much challenges. In fact, Mula Prakriti Mataji, in her book about Srila Prabhupada, she writes a wonderful pastime that in 1980, one devotee, Gaudiya Vaishnava, but not from ISKCON, he came to Mayapur with a Back to Godhead magazine in his hands. And he came and he met different devotees there, and he started asking, who is this person? So everyone said, oh, this is Srila Prabhupada. He's the founder Acharya of ISKCON and all of that. He said, oh, okay. I think you should know this story because I've seen this person many times. And I have been the pujari of Sri Advaita Acharya's Shantipur house since the 1940s. For about 40 years he was the pujari of Shantipur, where Advaita Acharya's house, Babla it's called, he was there. And he was worshipping the deities of Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu, who actually came there and started planning the Sankirtan movement from there. That was the house from where Sankirtan movement planning started. The execution started in Shrivas Pandit's house. So he said, in the 40s and 50s, there was a young gentleman in white dhoti kurta. He would come, and he would come once a month or sometimes twice a month, and he would sit behind and chant very peacefully. Sometimes he had tears in his eyes, and every time he would go, he would thank me, give me some donation and ask for blessings. And I would see him regularly, and we just had a Hare Krishna kind of relationship. And then after 50s, he stopped coming. Then one day in 1965, I saw a sannyasi in saffron clothes. And he came, he paid obeisances, and he was sitting and chanting in the same way. And by the way he was sitting and chanting, something clicked, and I recognized this person used to come 15 years ago. And he was, Jai Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki Jai, Shri Shri Nitai Chaitanya Chandra ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Chandra ki, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. This person used to come and he would chant very peacefully. And this sannyasi came, and I recognized he's the same person who used to come. But this time he was chanting and more intensely, and he was crying profusely, and he sat for hours together. And so I didn't want to disturb him. But when he was leaving, he came to me and he paid obeisances, and we both paid obeisances to each other. And I told him, I remember you used to come 15 years ago. He said, yes, I used to come here. But now I have taken sannyas, and tomorrow I'm going on a mission that my spiritual master has given me. He wants me to go to the Western world and preach Krishna consciousness, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I wanted to come and pray here because this was the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya started their planning of the Sankirtan movement. So I've come here to just pray to them to please somehow give me some direction and empower me so I can fulfill the order of my spiritual master. And so, and he was asking me for my blessings. And I was like, I'm just a simple pujari, what blessings can I do? No, please bless me. So then I prayed for him, and then he left. After that I didn't see him, but few years after 1965, I started seeing some white American sannyasis in saffron clothes. And they used to come here and, pay obeisances. And one of them gave me this Back to Godhead magazine. And I saw the picture of the same person. He is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has come, and I could understand he has become successful in his mission. So I came to know that in Mayapur you are building this. This was 1980, 3 years after Prabhupada left. So he didn't come for about 12 years. But after that, he came and he started describing the story of how the day before he embarked, Srila Prabhupada prayed to Advaita Acharya, to Nityananda Prabhu, to Sri Mahaprabhu, to give him the direction and empowerment. And similarly, when he was in Vrindavan, he used to pray to Srila Rupa Goswami and all the Goswamis. He would live in the room in Radha Damodar temple, and he would always pray. And even when he started preaching, he would always say that the success of our mission is when the previous acharyas are pleased with us. This was the underlying theme of whatever he would do. He would do everything for the pleasure of the previous acharyas. So we are very grateful that Srila Prabhupada embarked on this journey, because of which we are here in this beautiful temple, serving together on the boat that Srila Prabhupada created, the boat of ISKCON. He came to the boat of Jaladuta. Jaladuta means ambassador of the ocean. So he was truly the ambassador who came from the ocean, and then he built a boat which can take us through the ocean of material existence. All we have to do is just stay on the boat and not jump out of it. Whatever be the challenges, whatever be the sufferings, whatever it may be, if we just stay on the boat together, this boat will take us across the ocean of material existence. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Wow.